Welcome into All Tied Up. We have another fantastic show for you today. I am one of your hosts, your co-host Chris Marler, joined by my good buddy and co-host Clint Lamb. We've got a special episode of Stock Up, Stock Down. A lot of overreactions that we can still get to. We're going to be talking still about the game against South Florida and some players, moments, whatever, of Stock Up, Stock Down. First and foremost, Clint, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited to do this. I got my Celsius and my little blue bottle.
Well, this was supposed to happen yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And obviously my internet played a part in that. I apologize. But we're here now, so that's all that matters.
Why are you doing the all black screen? What's going on right now?
I don't know. I don't know what happened. Anyways, let's just move on. I don't know. I didn't even notice it. I'm probably clicking things I'm not supposed to over here. I have no idea.
It's a metaphor because we're still upset about the game, obviously. So
it's a funeral. It's Alabama's funeral.
No, I mean, listen, we got some time to get into this, all the stuff with Wisconsin coming up this weekend, but it's also so good to go back and look at some of the games. We do this every week, stock up, stock down. I'll start with you. Give me a stock up in your opinion from this weekend.
Easily for me, Tim Keenan. He's like, when I looked at everybody, and I thought there was a lot of really good performances, but he just, to me, stood out above everybody else because he was such a dominant force. He was a complete ox against the run, which isn't all that surprising, but it was his ability to push the pocket, apply pressure on the quarterback. You've got some pass rushers, and we all know who those guys are. But having that complementary interior piece that kind of can collapse the pocket, keep the quarterback from being able to step up in the pocket, that just provides so much for your defense. And I thought Tim Smith played really well on that front too. I thought he was applying some pressure. I think James Smith is doing a lot of that as well. But for me, just Tim Keenan, he wins in a different way than a lot of those other guys. But he's turning into a dominant force. I thought going into the year that he was probably one of the most underrated players in the entire conference, if not the entire country. And, hopefully, as if he can continue to play like he played on Saturday, his, reputation and respect starts going up around college football.
Yeah, I'll tell you, and he was also the I think, SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week. So
rightfully so.
Yeah, completely agree. So it's nice to see him get some recognition, some accolades, and some acknowledgement that he deserves. I'm going to give you one. This is going to be a very, I don't say very, but it's kind of a little bit of a sunshine pumper take on something that happened. So instead of focusing on the negatives and stock down right off the bat, I'm gonna give you a stock up, and it's Parker Brailsford from the center position. And here's why. We saw chaos happen. It seemed like all night. It felt like South Florida was in the backfield all night. Jalen Milroe was running for his life a whole bunch. I think midway through the third quarter, they flashed a stat up on the screen that said, I think Milroe had been pressured on like 43% of his dropbacks, something crazy like that. So that's kind of stuff that can't happen. But here's the one thing I did feel comfortable in and confident in about the offensive line. In the very center of it, you have a rock. Like you have an anchor, and you have somebody that is going to come in there and be able to give you consistent play. And so at least coming in your face, that's phrasing, there's mother. That's a tough one.
Just keep going. Just keep going. Don't highlight it. Just go.
At least like from the direct part of the first part of the play, you don't have an instant issue. And here's what I mean by that. Like, all jokes aside, okay? Like, Seth McLaughlin was a really, really good blocker, and he showed out at times like when it mattered most. You could argue he had the two best games of his life against Georgia, both SEC championship games that he was in. But when you are starting out an offensive play in the game of American football, the first thing that has to happen is the ball has to be snapped from the center to the quarterback. And, it feels like beating a dead horse here at times, but like, it's tough to start with a guy, especially like Jalen Milroe, who's still getting his feet wet, and the snap is off target. There's no cadence, no rhythm, all that kind of stuff. What Alabama has on the offensive line is some questions that they need to figure out, and they will get that figured out throughout the season, I'm sure. But one place they do not have a question mark, it seems like right now at least, is at center. And that's a good feeling to have, even though there's some other stuff they got to get worked out across the line.
Yeah, Parker Brailsford was definitely one on mine too, and
Yeah.
I think he's played phenomenal the last 2 weeks. He's exactly what you wanted when you brought him over from Washington, and I just don't think people realize how much gets put on the center in Kalen DeBoer's offense. You know, they're pulling the center a lot. You got to be an athlete, but at the same time, you need to be an athlete, but you also need to be able to hold up when you're doing more of the traditional stuff, especially in the SEC.
Yeah.
And Parker Brailsford is, you know, he's really stout. I mean, I understand he's undersized. He's listed at 290 now. I think that 15 pounds certainly helped him. If he actually is 290, he might be like 285 or something. I don't know. But either way, he's holding up well. And we'll take a look and see if that continues as you start getting into these types of games, bigger defensive fronts, a lot more physical. We'll see, how he plays. But I mean, he's been great through
Mhm.
the first couple of weeks. And I think that that's really important. I think, Jaden Roberts has been solid.
Yeah.
I think, Tyler Booker played well kicking out the left tackle. I thought Geno Vandermark was not great as far as being a run blocker. I thought he was fine as a pass protector, but, just that interior offensive front had a lot of trouble against USF's defensive front. They were just throwing a lot of different things at him. I didn't think they created enough consistent movement. Now, I did mention that I feel like at times USF's game plan, it felt like was, hey, let's hammer these interior gaps, force Jalen Milroe to get on the move, and then we'll have a quarterback spot already anticipating that, immediately applying pressure and getting in his
Right.
face. And so, through some of that stuff, like your interior is not going to look as great. They're taking some chances, and it's more run blitzing as far as the interior gaps. I thought that was happening a lot. So it was a difficult situation, but Parker Brailsford to me has been, fantastic. The next guy for me is going to be Germie Bernard. I think compared to last
Yeah.
week, he's certainly a stock up guy. Now, I wasn't freaking out about him last week at all, but he only had one target this week. He tied for a team leading 7 targets with Ryan Williams. And let's see, so he had 4 catches for 53 yards, but he also had a run for 13 yards, so 66 total yards.
Right.
With as much as the offense struggled, I think that he had a solid outing, and he made some plays. He was a reliable target for Jalen Milroe. And I just think that, as Ryan Williams kind of emerges as this alpha wide receiver 1, which is exactly what he's doing. We had the question marks coming into the season. Can he, step up and be that guy from day one? He was by far their best chance to have that this year, and he certainly is living up to that billing early. But that kind of moves Germie Bernard into more of a number 2 role, which I think is ideal for him. I think that would be his role in the NFL, is just being a really good number 2, maybe a number 3, but eventually becoming a really good number 2. And, I just think when you look at his snap share and Ryan Williams, they were so far ahead of the number 3 and below guys like Kendrick Law. He played something like 24 snaps. I think Kobe Prentice played 26. And those other guys, both, Ryan Williams and Germie Bernard, they were both up in the 60s. So it was just a massive discrepancy, a lot of 2 receiver sets, in certain situations. But, a lot of rotation happening below those 2 guys. So Bernard's certainly a stock up guy for me.
I'll give you another stock up guy, and it's in another position that had a lot of scrutiny, and that's Devonta Smith. And you look at the four cornerbacks that Bama played: Xavier Brown, Demani Jackson, Red Morgan, and Devonta Smith. He graded out the highest, and really like by a lot. He graded out the highest at on PFF with their NCAA player grades and all that kind of stuff. I think he was a 77.6 overall. I'm looking at it right now. The other ones in that backfield: Demani Jackson, 64.5, Xavier Brown, 61.1, Red Morgan, 54.7. This is something I think is going to change from week to week. Like, you're going to see guys that are going to have good games, bad games. There's all so little experience in that group. And I think that when you look at what's going on this week, and the team they're going to play, like there's like everyone looks at Wisconsin and instantly you think of, oh, well, they run the ball a lot and they play good defense. That's like what we've seen from the brand on that helmet, the logo on that helmet for a long time. Luke Fickell is a very good defensive coach. I think we'd all agree with that. But Phil Longo is their offensive coordinator. And if you have been around the SEC for the last 5 or 10 years, you're familiar with the name Phil Longo. And he's going to throw the football. They've averaged throwing the ball, I think, over 30 times each with their starting quarterback in the first 2 games. Those guys are going to get, I don't say tested like a lot, because I don't know what kind of athletes Wisconsin necessarily has at receiver. But from the scheme and just the X and O standpoint of what they're going to try to do when they go to Madison this weekend, they're going to throw the ball a lot, and they're going to try to confuse Alabama. So I think having Devontae Smith have such a good game, especially at his age, right? Like, you got a lot of new faces, a lot of newcomers in there. Like, I think that he's a guy that can be, again, some stability and bring some sort of like veteran presence of, like, at least if we have that guy, like, it's the first time in a long time, Clint, you've had to look at your 2 cornerback positions, 2, not just 1, and be like, man, like, we really had it good last year with Arnold and Kool-Aid. And now you got to figure out who's going to replace those guys. Devontae Smith did a really good job, I thought, on Saturday night, especially in a time where there was other guys that weren't exposed, but they were getting beat a little bit.
Yeah, and I think his presence is really, really important, because while I think Red Morgan is playing pretty good football, and I think he's going to end up being a really, really good player for Alabama, I don't think he's ready for an every down starting role. Right. And so if you didn't have Devontae Smith, you kind of, where would you really be? It's not that Red Morgan would be just a massive problem, but I think he would be at times an exploitable piece, because he is so young, he's green, and he's still trying to get bigger and stronger. Right. And so just having Devontae Smith, I thought he once again played a good game. I thought he was good in run defense. I thought that he was good in coverage, and just he has kind of been a reliable, consistent player through 2 weeks. And so that's all you can really ask. Next up for me is going to be Robbie Oots, man. Yeah. I mean, just the guy, he didn't play a ton of snaps. Is actually, it's pretty clear. I want to say 75% of the snaps are roughly CJ Dupree was on the field. They do run some 12 personnel stuff that'll get 2 guys on the field. That's usually going to be Oots and Dupree. But Oots, just to me, as far as his blocking, has just been phenomenal. And it's wild because, kind of your off tackle outside stuff, Alabama's been pretty effective running the football. I think where they've come up short is kind of the interior run, which is wild when you consider what we thought that interior offensive line is going to be. Granted, it's only been 2 weeks. Tyler Booker had to kick out the tackles. You had Geno Vandermark. I thought he was a big problem. And, from a schematic fit, I don't think a guy like Jaden Roberts is like the perfect fit for this offense. I still think he's effective, still think he's a really good player, but he's kind of, he's lost weight. He's doing whatever he can to be as successful as he can in this offense. And that's certainly helped him, and it's helped Alabama, but I just don't think it's a complete ideal fit. So, but having a guy like Robbie Oots out there, nothing in the passing game. The tight ends really just aren't offering a ton. I guess, 1 catch for 3 yards for Oots, 1 catch for 5 from Cuevas, and CJ Dupree had 1 for 12 on 2 targets. So they got a little bit more usage compared to week 1. But for me, it's all about the blocking game. And, it's not just run blocking. I think their limited pass protection reps have been solid, especially Oots. He's a 6'4", 270-pound tight end. I mean, that's almost a small tackle. So, what was Brailsford playing at in the Pac-12 last year? 275.
272.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's certainly, it's a massive tight end, and it's been very beneficial. And I think the more that they start to get that interior, stuff figured out, and they can become more multiple in how they can attack you, I think that's really going to help. And, Oots and those guys got to continue to play good football out there on the perimeter.
Stock down. Got to do 1, right? You got to at least do 1.
Man, I've got a feeling I know who you're going to say.
You don't.
Oh, I don't.
No.
Is it Chris Marler? Is Chris Marler on your stock down?
It's me. No, it's and it's not gonna be Wilkin Formby. It's not gonna be anything like that. It is the defense and getting opportunistic turnovers. It felt like in game 1. Listen, you're second to last now through 2 games in the SEC in turnover margin and turnovers forced. Or I'm sorry, turnovers lost. It felt like there were times when you could have really put a stranglehold on that game earlier, and they didn't. and it felt like they lacked the continuity and the killer instinct that I thought they would have, because it is still a veteran team in a lot of ways, especially on offense. Like it might not be a bunch of guys that have been there forever, but it feels like there's a lot of guys that have that know how to go out there and win games. Like the core part of this team, I feel like was around for last year, knows how to go out there and win games. So when you're inside the 5-yard line, you cannot be going under center and fumbling a football. There's that many plays that they're throwing the ball deep, and there's 0 interceptions. Like, it just felt like there were times when they could have really put their foot down and at least change the momentum going into a situation. And this is going to branch out of not just even the turnovers part, but like being able to have that part of your identity as a team, I think, and like where somebody steps up and is like, hey, like you have to stop this slide, right? You had 5 drives between the second and third quarter that amassed negative 23 yards. Like, that's almost impossible to do. So you think about how efficient and awesome the offense was a week ago and put up 600 yards of offense. How the hell did you have 5 drives that totaled negative 23 yards? A lot of that was lost, in sack yardage and just other different things that this team did. But it felt like there was not a time where you felt somebody's going to step up and figure out how to change this until it's too late. That didn't happen until late in the fourth quarter, man. Like, that was a close game into the fourth quarter against a team, and you look up and it's like, well, it was 42-16. That's not how that game played out. And I think most Bama fans would agree with that. And I think if you're being logical and you're trying to think big picture here, right? Like, this is it's great to have a win and it's great to move on from that. But this is a game you probably should have been trailing for most of. And I think probably still eked it out and won. But that's just, there was a lot in the middle of that game where it didn't feel like somebody stepped up and somebody was going to take over. And I mean, from a coaching standpoint too, Clint. I mean, like somebody need to come in here and figure out, like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what they're doing on offense or defense. Figure it out, make the adjustment, because 5 straight drives for negative 23 yards with this offensive talent is unacceptable.
I mean, I know it was a lot. I don't know the exact number, but it was like 5 times. And you say 5 for negative 20, so it was at least 5 times, but it might have been more than that. But the 3 and outs from the offense, I mean, it was. How does that happen?
Right.
But I see me going back and kind of watching, because a lot of times you'll watch just the offense, like the all 22 is just showing the offense, and then you'll go and you'll watch just the defense. And sometimes it's kind of hard to tell if you're not paying attention when a drive changes, and it's a completely different drive.
Right.
But I mean, I will say, I mean, you talk about that turnover margin issue. Half of that's the offense turning the football over. They turned it over 3 times. How many unfavorable situations did they put their defense in? Yeah. You're going against a tempo offense that's kind of trying to do some, not shady, but kind of shady, substitutions to kind of, have Xavier Brown, gassed on there on the outside. Like, they're dealing with fatigue enough, and you're going 5 3 and outs in a row or whatever it was.
You had 6 total 3 and outs in the game, and I think 7 total punts. I mean,
that's just, that can't happen. And so the defense, to me, I thought the defense, actually, considering how much it would already be tired, they're just the speed in which USF plays, it's already going to put major strain on you. And I think the only thing that saved Alabama defensively was the fact that they could rotate at a lot of positions and feel pretty good about it. The defensive line out there, at Wolf, you can rotate in Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
So I agree with you in the sense of, I mean, how Byron Brown, some of those passes were so bad. Like, typically when a quarterback is inaccurate, you can exploit that and take advantage of it.
That's what I'm saying.
But I mean, it was all vertical shots where he's throwing it to no man's land where nobody can get to it.
Which is smart by him. It was 15 of 35 for 103 yards. Like, you say what you want to about Byron Brown. He had a horrible game, but he did put balls in positions where it's like only his guy was going to be able to get him.
I mean, you say only his guy. It was no one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was that dude was throwing it into the stands almost. But at the I mean, he's just not putting the football in a position or in a place where you can really capitalize. And so I don't want to defend that too much. It's like Kane Womack said after the first week, 2 turnovers. That's great.
Right.
But he thought they could add more. And Jahad Campbell, I thought it was interesting. It was kind of like a very similar place where last week it was Deontay Lawson. This week it was Jahad Campbell being able to cut on that route and then they just drop it. That's you got to make those catches. That would have been 2 more turnovers. That's 4 through 2 games. That you'd be in a much different place. But the opportunities, in this one were somewhat limited. But you also got to say, I mean, USF found a way to knock some balls out and put some balls on the ground. And granted, some of that's the snap miscue, but some of that's just good tackling, whether it be on Jam Miller or on Kendrick Law, I guess. Which for me, Kendrick Law is on my stock down this week, and it's nothing. And once again, we're not trying to be too negative on these guys, but just what were we imagining from this guy? Talking about benching 450 pounds, running, super fast. I don't remember what the miles per hour was, 23. Yeah, something like that, 21.3, whatever it was. And it's not that I think that this is going to continue necessarily, but, through 2 games, he's averaging 17 and a half snaps. Last year, he averaged 17.9. Over the last 7 games, he was up there probably in like I think it increased to like 22 roughly.
Yeah.
And, on Saturday, he played 24. So I find it interesting, like, because the game was close, you did see Alabama kind of condense the rotations. Guys were playing, a majority of the game. And Kendrick Law still only saw 24 snaps through 2 games. He's seen 3 total targets. Yeah. He's had 2 total touches, 1 catch and 1 run. And so, I mean, based off of where we thought this guy was going to be and the fumble, that plays into it as well. It kind of makes you're going to land on this list because I thought they were going to be really creative with him. And here's what I'm wondering. Is it that, he's just not living up to the billing so far? Or is it this is purposeful? There's going to be some different things that they do with him that they didn't want to reveal, with South Florida or with Western Kentucky. We'll find out more, maybe starting this weekend, but no doubt. I mean, if you don't have a plan for him by Georgia, then that plan's not going to exist all season as far as what you intend. That can change, make some adjustments, but what you intended for him, if you ain't doing it against Georgia, you wasn't planning to do it. So, I hate to be critical of him, but, this offense is still trying to figure out a lot. When you are going 3 and out, the number of offensive plays, I mean, it's going to be limited. Ron Williams' emergence kind of as that guy who is going to play a majority of the snaps with Germie Bernard. That's going to limit things. But, for me, Kendrick Law would be on my stock down this week.
My last stock down for Bama. Mental focus, man. Like, here's the thing. I struggle with focus. Clinton would tell you that all the time. Horrible ADD. But here's the thing. At some point, it's fine to sit here and talk about like, well, last year they had like 11 touchdowns wiped off the board. You had like 3 in this game. They were wiped off the board. At some point, guys, that's going to come back and haunt you. At some point, that is going to come back. There's going to be a game where those points are going to be precious. Those moments are going to be precious in terms of like we had a good shot here. We had a chance to score, and it's getting wiped off the board. And so now instead of a touchdown, and you're up 7, you're up 14, you're up 10, or you're down 3 or whatever, instead of that, it's not only you lose that, but also now it's 1st and 20. And like you're going to get into several games this year, Georgia, Tennessee, especially in road games, Tennessee, Oklahoma, LSU, where those points are going to be at a premium. You got to figure it out, man. Like you've got to figure it out. This has become a problem over the last 2 years that I have at least never seen anything like this from a team. Like where you have this many touchdowns that are taken off the board. If the number is 11, and I don't remember it being 11, I knew there were at least 5 in the first month of last season. You brought up the number 11, I think, like about what Saban said at the end of last season, and it might have been, but 3 in this game, 11 from last season, 14 times in the last 2 seasons. You've had touchdowns taken off the board. I just haven't seen anything like that. So, again, to quote that random person in the stands that went viral, fix your shit. Fix your shit, guys. Like, what are we doing?
Man. I don't know. I don't think it's a lack of focus, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
I don't know what to equate the whole call touchdowns back to. I
I mean, have
mean,
you seen anything like that before?
no, not that I can remember. And I will.
Right.
We actually need to kind of stop speculating on the number because I kind
Yeah.
of and
Right.
actually go find out what it is. But I mean, that's what I seem to remember, and I'm pretty sure that's right, somewhere in there, 10, 12, something like that.
I know for a fact 5 were knocked off in the first month of last year. So if the number is even 8, that's
Yeah,
still too much.
yeah, 100%. And I don't know. That makes that once you reach that point, I think that's just probably like the worst luck of all time. Like I don't know that that's something. I almost don't want to make an excuse for Alabama, but that almost doesn't feel like that's even an Alabama problem at that point. And I don't even know what to equate that to, but that's weird to me. That's really weird. But it's not to me that they're not focused, or at least I don't think that it is. It feels more like last year. It's kind of when you have a quarterback like Jalen Milroe,
Right.
and he's the offensive line has to learn it's unpredictable. Like a play's not really too often going to operate the way that it's supposed to operate. So you're going to see a lot of scrambling. Guys are trying to figure, okay, can I start getting downfield and get blocks for you? Going to pull up and throw it. But through that kind of chaos for your offensive line, which a lot of people deal with it. I mean, NFL, college, this isn't like, hey, oh, this is unfair for the offensive line. I'm just saying it's different
Right.
than a Tua offense that's very kind of Tua could do off schedule stuff,
Yeah.
so or off script stuff. So I mean, maybe that's not, but I feel like he could operate a standard typical offense probably a little bit better. Like a Mac Jones,
Mhm.
being there in the pocket, you kind of know what you're going to get from him. He's not going to, as far as his pocket presence and being able to elude pressure within the pocket, he could do that. But you knew he was going to stay in the pocket. But that can lead to you grabbing a hold of a guy as Jalen Milroe's trying to break free to the outside, and you get called for a hold, or whatever the case may be. That can lead to some of that. I'm just saying there's a bunch of circumstances, but it just doesn't feel like there's like a lack of focus.
Okay.
But it I don't know.
Sure, I'm always wrong, Clint.
I'm sorry. Well, and you know what? I want people to comment because I do feel like probably a bunch of Bama fans, might feel the same way that you do, that there's just like a lack of focus. And that to me, that's a big issue. If that is, in fact, if you're right, there shouldn't be a lack of, I don't care.
Cool.
The game's at night. It's not like it's kind of early morning, 11 a.m. You're kind of groggy. I can see those games being slow and sluggish. I understand the opponent might not, be the caliber that you want it to be up to this point. But I mean, USF, if they didn't know that USF could cause some problems,
Right.
and so I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on that. I feel like a guy's got overwhelmed, whether it would just be offensively, defensively, what USF was doing on both sides of the football. It was like, man, they were being really aggressive just with the twist and the stunts and the sending, 5 guys, sending
Video
6
you
guys.
sent.
There was a couple of times I think I saw him playing, sending 7. And
Right.
it's like, I think they got overwhelmed. I think they got in their heads a little bit. And that's something that you got to get fixed.
Oh, and here's the thing too. I'm not trying to make excuses for Bama. Like, I remember last year, Dunaway and I were talking about this because they were talking about like some of the points that were taken off the board a year ago. And he was like, if you go back and look at them, there's several examples where it's like, they would not have scored if there wasn't a flag. Like, so it's like, there was a one against Texas specifically. I remember it was like, okay, yeah, that's fair. Here's the thing, right? Like, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for Alabama about this game on Saturday. And I'm not trying to pump up South Florida because it's South Florida, right? But there's also some reality to the point where maybe you just don't match up well with South Florida. Like, schematically, that sounds crazy to a lot of casual fans where it's like, because it's South Florida. We know you should beat, you were a 31.5 point favorite. You should win, by however many points, blah, blah, blah. But schematically, we've watched Alex Golish dice up Alabama for 3 years in a row now, at least. Like, maybe not on the points, but like, how's that guy running free again? Like, how do you not make an adjustment in 2022 Tennessee game and have a safety? Like, he has figured out a way, like that, for whatever reason, against Bama consistently now for 3 years, that he has been able to figure out how to get guys open, how to get guys in the backfield, like all that stuff. So maybe, as crazy as it sounds, like maybe it's just not a good matchup for Alabama. You still won both those games against USF, which is great, but like I don't want to play them again. I just don't.
Well, yeah, and I think that a lot of what Golish can do, just as far as scheming things up, offensively, is going to cause you issues. I think Todd Orlando defensively, his mindset as a defense coordinator is just very aggressive.
Right.
So that's it's not necessarily schematically that they cause a lot of issues necessarily. It's more of like this aggressive mentality that I think is amplified when you play a team like Alabama, like MTSU last year. You know, Wisconsin's not going to do what MTSU did or what USF did because, and maybe they might, I mean, just because they might feel like that they have no chance either, that people aren't perceiving that they have a chance. But it's like you're swinging for the fences because it's like USF got paid, right, to come into Tuscaloosa and play Alabama. So in their minds, like no one's giving us a chance. Let's go for broke. You know, if we bust some coverages downfield, they get some long touch. Who cares? Right. I mean, they're going to probably be doing that anyways. But let's send throw the kitchen sink at them. Other teams come in and they say, hey, let's collect a paycheck and let's get out of here. Utah State a couple of years ago, in the season opener, that's what they did, and I have no problem saying that. I felt like that's exactly what they did. But MTSU, they were like, hey, the only way we're going to have a chance is just taking a bunch of risk, and hopefully they pay off. But that just causes so much trouble, and it's not something that Georgia's that they don't have to approach the game that way. They're taking all those risks and stuff. But it's just that's why I say it's not something you're going to see super often. Right. And that changes things. For me, my last stock up, and at this point, I mean, we're really talking about Wilkin Formby as stock down. I mean, I feel like we've kind of beaten a dead horse on that. He struggled. If Proctor and Pritchett are both back healthy, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Pritchett gets the start. I also wouldn't be shocked if Formby gets the start. But it will be, Proctor will be your left tackle. So really nothing else to say there. I would say he's probably, the number one stock down guy for everybody based off of 4 pressures allowed, 4 penalties, and I think he gets better from here, if I'm speaking candidly. But for me, my last stock up guy, even though he's suspended for the first half, is Justin Jefferson.
Yes. That is the one. Yes, you were close to that one because I was going to have him on my list as well. Go ahead.
Yes. Dude, I mean, he is all over the place. 20 snaps played, 20 defensive snaps, which is, I think, Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell both were like in the 65 to 67 range. So 3.5 times the snaps. In 20 snaps, Justin Jefferson had 10 tackles. He was second on the team, only one behind Jahad Campbell. That's a tackle every 2 snaps. If he would have played the same number of snaps as the other 2 guys, he would have been 30-plus tackles in this football game if he could have maintained that pace. Right. That is absurd.
He's everywhere. Like that sounds crazy to say like 30 tackles, but you're right, dude. Like, listen, this is one of the reasons I love doing this show with you, and the Celsius is kicking in, so you can tell I'm all amped up. But like nobody charts the game, I feel like, as well as you. And that's a crazy thing to say, 30 tackles. But 15, dude, if you make 15, that's an insane night. Like to see his name at the top of that list with a third of the time in, like that's. Dude, I think that one of the only reasons I didn't put him on my list is probably because my ADD kind of kicked in, I forgot. But then also, too, like, it seems odd because he's going to be out for this next game, and he's not even technically a starter compared, like, because you have Lawson and Campbell. But I keep saying this, man. It felt like times last year where Campbell was even better than Lawson. And it feels like there's times right now, early on in this season, where, listen, I'll take all 3 of them. I think all 3 of them could be, I think it's the best linebacking core in the country. But like Justin Jefferson he's making a case in the first 2 weeks, Clint, that he is the best linebacker on that roster. And I'm trying not to say the F word, but that is crazy. Like that is who thought that was going to happen going into the season?
Now, I think the Celsius has kicked in too much.
Too much, huh? I'm all amped up.
You need to calm down because Jahad Campbell's playing some damn good football right now.
He's awesome too.
So I mean, I don't want to get. And this is coming from the leader of the Justin Jefferson fan club. Yeah. I'm happy that I was a year late, but at least I wasn't complete. It wasn't a complete swing and a miss as far as Jefferson's concerned. I mean, because it was always there. I saw the instinctual stuff in the spring game last year. He's a heat-seeking missile when he sees it, man. As soon as he's going to get there lightning quick. You saw him. There was one play where he rolled down just absolutely wiped out the tight end and got in on the tackle. There was another one on a 3rd and 3 where he's able to get out to the sideline. It was like a pass to the running back, tracks him down, tackles him, keeps him from getting the first down. Just the hit that he got, booted for. I've kind of already shared my thoughts on that. It's unfortunate. I think based off of the rule, I mean, it does seem like crown a helmet. I think the targeting was more to protect Justin Jefferson than it was what he did to Byron Brown, because he kind of dipped his head a little bit. But as I said in other shows, I feel like as he was making contact, that head was sliding up. So even though the initial might have been just a little bit too far on the crown of the helmet, if a guy hits you and his head's completely down through the hit, you can really mess yourself up. But if a guy's hitting you kind of with that crown of your helmet and it's immediately sliding up, I personally don't think that should be a penalty. But it is what it is. But this cat, man, and he's going to be the Energizer Bunny, in my opinion, when he comes into the second half this week, just because he's going to have missed the entire first half. Obviously, you don't have to make the kind of substitutions that Alabama did last week, because Wisconsin's not going to use tempo to the degree that USF does. Now, Phil Longo, people need to understand this in your typical Wisconsin offense, like you already mentioned, they're going to use more tempo than you think they are. They're probably going to try to throw the football a little bit more than you think they are, but they're not USF. USF is just lightning fast, man. So, Jefferson for me definitely rounds out my list. And you could probably throw in Jam Miller too. I'd like to. Robert Gillespie did say, I think this past week, he said, hey, we got 2 really good running backs. They're both pretty selfless as far as this stuff's concerned, but at times when we need to ride the hot hand, we will. And I wouldn't say they went fully to Miller, but it was pretty clear down the stretch, other than Justice's touchdown run, which was phenomenal contact balance, all that. Jam Miller also, he just looked like a guy that every time he was touching the football, he was making something happen with it. And so they kind of even though he played less snaps by a pretty significant margin, it was still, he out-touched Justice Haynes, and he did way more with his touches. Now, that touchdown got called back for Haynes as well. Can't forget about that. But Jam Miller, for me, even though he fumbled, most times you would make this stock up list with a fumble, but I thought he played really, really well.
Yeah. I'll give my last one. And it's going to sound stupid because this is what Bama fans expect, but I just want to reiterate again to this fan base the difference in programs. Stock up, you're not Auburn. And here's the deal. I know that sounds stupid, but here's the thing. We heard all offseason from Auburn fans. All offseason. Oh, they're going back to 8-4. I can't wait till they're 7-5. This is going to be the Shula days all over again now that Saban's gone. You got Husky Harsin, all that dumb shit. Auburn, of course, loses to Cal at home after throwing 5 interceptions. But I want to talk about the difference in programs here for a second. Since that loss to UL Monroe in 2007, Alabama is 122-1 against unranked teams. 120-1 was under Saban, right? But you're 122-1 against unranked teams. You do not lose to teams you're not supposed to lose to, right? Like you might lose at home to Texas, or you had to slip up against Georgia when you have 5 guys out, like Tennessee on the road by 3, or Death Valley at night, whatever. But 122-1 against unranked teams, and Alabama, as bad as we are, or as bad as we have made some things out to be from this game against USF, and to sit here and say, well, this was unacceptable, and like kind of getting on some of like the guys or the plays or whatever. They still won by 26. And that, I just want to reiterate once again that it feels so great to sit here with a new head coach and say, yeah, it's still the same standard. It's still the same standard. And you're going into another week against an unranked opponent, and they're probably going to beat them. That's why they're a 17-point favorite. Not to jinx anything, but all the outside noise, it's nice to sit here and see this is what this is supposed to look like, and it still does, despite a new person as a head coach. Imagine losing to Cal at home as a 2-touchdown favorite by throwing 5 interceptions. Milroe, they would have given the Bill Curry. They would have had, outside of his house or dorm room or wherever it is, they would have had a U-Haul truck pulled up outside.
Yeah, this was just to kind of tell you where the two programs have been. Auburn fans are like, man, this Bama team, they ain't going to be no good. They're going to be 8-4 again. Right. And then you got the same fan base being like, heck, I think we can get to 8-4 this year. Yeah. It's like, pretty sure those are the same thing. But anyways, I like that one. That's a good one to wrap up on.
Yeah.
Covered a lot of them. Now we didn't get in the weeds as much as we have in, other stock up, stock down episodes, but I kind of like hitting on a lot of different guys, even though it wasn't a great performance from Alabama. When I went back through and you look at individual performances, I was like, I don't know, man. I came away with a lot of positives from this.
Good.
Just collectively, that some things still got some kinks got to get worked out, especially offensively, man. I don't know what it is, but it just feels like the last 2 years, and a lot of people, I know what they're going to do. They're going to say, well, what's been going on the last 2 years? Jalen Milrow's been the quarterback. And it's like with Jalen Hurts, man, at a certain point, if this like continues and it's been 2 straight years, we're getting towards the end of the year or something, okay, we can maybe start to have that conversation. I just think it's a new offensive coordinator, very new look offense, a lot of moving parts, a lot of new receivers. The offensive line's been makeshift, but for whatever reason, just this offense has been very hit or miss the last 2 years. And I'd like to see a little bit more consistency come out against Wisconsin. Play complementary football offensively and defensively, but also just offensively, like, mix up the run, get your quarterback involved with that, your 2 running backs, throw the football, attack the short to intermediate, make some deep shots, do all the different things, and make some magic happen. But
yeah,
this has been fun. Chris, you got anything else before we get out of here, buddy?
No, I mean, that's it. I appreciate you letting me have my meltdown and all that good stuff, and I'll go take a nap now.
How many Celsiuses do you drink a day?
4 or 5.
That's healthy. Okay.
This is 2 packets. That's like 400 milligrams caffeine.
Okay.
Hey, hands up, brother.
All right. I just gosh, man. You're probably burning a hole in that chair. Anyways, appreciate you, man, as always. If you haven't already, go like and subscribe. Definitely go subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe at covercrimson.com. That helps us tremendously. We got some stuff in the works for you guys coming up. I don't want to reveal too much on that, but it's going to be some pretty good stuff, some stuff you're going to want. So keep an eye out for that. Chris, once again, appreciate you. We will do this again soon, brother.
Sounds good, man.